Welcome to Paint a Beautiful Picture. My name is Violet Newby. It is so good to have you with me today. Today we're going to talk about intentionally teaching your child flexibility. You know, most of us are pretty inflexible. We really want things to be our way. I mean, that's the way we are as human beings, right? Here's the thing. I come from a whole family of individuals who are pretty sure that their way is the right way, and they do not bend or move easily. They do not receive instruction with great joy, and they are very seldom willing to be flexible in changing their mind or even changing their methods. This is part of why this is such a big thing to me. I really actively worked on helping my sons develop flexibility, and I can honestly say to you, one of them did much better at this lesson than the other. And he's still pretty sure that he's right and his way is the right way, just so you know. But anything we can do that will help our children understand how important it is to have flexibility is a good thing. Because you know what? Throughout life, plans change, circumstances change. You break your arm, someone gets sick, someone dies, someone has an accident. I mean, you lose your job. You never dreamt in a million years that was ever going to happen to you. And your boss wakes up and says, and we're downsizing in 2 weeks, we're letting you go. Life has a lot of stuff that happens. And if you don't have flexibility, it makes it a lot more difficult to handle. And so, intentionally helping your child understand the need for flexibility is a big deal and a great life skill. So, I'm going to give you some very specific examples. Then, I'm going to talk to you about the benefits of this. So, here is the question of the day for you. How flexible am I? Because somewhere along in here, as we have been talking about, we have a hard time passing along a skill or passing along knowledge that we don't possess ourselves. And so you've got to know if you're pretty inflexible, it's going to be a life skill you're going to learn alongside of your child. And as I've shared with you a lot of times before, much of what I know, I learned alongside of my kids. Don't despair. It's a great way to learn. All right. So it's okay if you're not very flexible. But really, I want you to assess that. How good am I at being flexible? Okay. So here's the story. You have plans. I mean, big plans. Like you're planning to go to the beach and you've been anticipating this for months. You've rented the condo. You've got all this stuff. You've even started packing, right? You bought a really cute new bathing suit. Your kids have really exciting things they have planned, going to this awesome water park to go on water slides, and they're going to be renting a boogie board, and your one son's going to take surfing lessons, and your mom has a stroke. And there's no way on the face of the earth you're going to get to go to the beach. Okay, so what are you going to do? Now, there are lots of possibilities. You can grump and complain and gripe and be mad and act all frustrated and be a complete jerk to everybody because things didn't go your way. And don't worry, that's kind of the norm. That's a very inflexible attitude, just so you know. So this might be a target signal for you that you're not a very flexible person. And oh my word, if you have a simple plan for the day, like going to lunch with your friends, but your car won't start and you're pitching a fit and yelling and screaming and cussing, and yeah, you're probably a really inflexible person. It's just a thing for us all to find out about ourselves. But how do you do it being flexible? So can you look at your kids and say, now, none of us knew about this, and none of us could have planned for this, but I need to be here for my mom. This is a massive life event, which none of us had any control over, but I'm going to take care of mom, and I understand that we're all disappointed, and I understand that we're all probably really frustrated by this, but we are not going to be able to go to the beach. We'll try to have some other things happen, but I don't even know if that's a possibility, depending on what all I have to do in terms of helping mom at the hospital or helping mom get into rehab. We're just going to have to find out what happens. So, did you hear a couple of those things in there? One is acknowledging what's really going on, acknowledging the frustration or the feelings, acknowledging the disappointment, or maybe even the anger or the sadness. Yeah, acknowledge this is really tough. But you don't need to gripe and complain and yell and scream and be ugly about it. Acknowledge this is really tough. Admit it was beyond my control. I didn't do this. And yet all of us have to handle it. I have to handle it too. I'm disappointed we don't get to go to the beach. This is not what I had anticipated. Okay, so that's a good thing. Then look at it as not necessarily a problem to be solved, but as a challenge to be faced. Just like I used that illustration earlier, you're going to go to lunch with your friend and your car won't start. That's a challenge to be faced, okay? You get your neighbor to jump your battery, you call AAA. If it's something really major, like your starter or your ignition switch, you get the car towed to the car dealer and you take it to the mechanic and let someone work on it. You face the challenge, okay? And so you're teaching your child something about what flexibility looks like. Okay, now here is how you develop flexibility in your child, and I want you to hear me loudly and clearly. I've shared this with some people, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to show him. That's not the idea. This is always about what is good for our child, what is best for our child. You have a child who isn't very flexible or can't really, face challenges well. They have this huge emotional meltdown, or they yell and scream because they have a really bad temper and they throw stuff and they break stuff. You want to develop flexibility in them a little bit at a time. Okay? So you find an area where it will not be extremely traumatic for them, and you intentionally make a change. You don't tell them about it. You definitely want your co parent in on this story with you, and you'll understand that in just a minute. All right, so say that your child has this huge baseball game, but they're going to play baseball all summer, right? Like they're going to have 40 games and a tournament. So you say to them, I'm really sorry, but we can't go to your game today. What? You got to be kidding me. Coach is going to be mad. I'm going to have to run the bases 10 times the next practice. What? Okay. Really and truly, it's not going to be the end of the world, and they need to learn some flexibility. I'm really sorry, but, and make sure that this is legit. Like, do this on purpose. We're going to be going out to eat with grandma and grandpa tonight. It's a big deal. It's their anniversary. It's a special day to them. Okay? But I mean, intentionally do this where you put your child in a position that he or she has to be flexible. The first time or 10, don't expect this to go terribly well. Okay? So this is why you got to be on board with your co-parent. Your child says to their dad, or dad, if you're the one who's establishing what's going to happen, to their mom, can you believe dad just did this to me? And he didn't even tell me about it. And wow. And if you get into commiserating with the child against the other parent, that's a nightmare. So not only are you not teaching the child flexibility, you're teaching them they can get in the middle of this and manipulate one or the other of you to cause trouble. No, no, no. Don't be playing that with your kids. That's not where you're headed, truly, ever. All right, so you have cooperation between the two of you. You come up with a plan of something that's going to impact your child and literally force them to develop some flexibility. Okay, so say your child has plans. Okay, so we're going to say your daughter's going to go spend the night with her best friend. And she does this twice a month. Okay. In other words, you're not going to ruin something that's a once in a year kind of event. That's ridiculous. Don't do that. That's mean. Okay. I'm talking about something that's a really regular event where they know they're going to get to do this again and they're going to be able to handle what just happened to them in the broad scope. Okay. And so you say to her, I'm really sorry, but you can't go tonight. Why not? Well, some other things came up. Let me tell you, in today's world, in general, I hear parents tell their kids every single thing. Do you know what? Sometimes we don't know everything. Do you know why people have strokes? Do you know why people fall and hurt themselves? Do you know why people get into car accidents? Yeah, me either. Right? Because things happen. This is why. You don't have to give your child an explanation about every single thing. And it's a legitimate thing to say. You just cannot. Okay, so she's going to have a fit. She's going to be the drama queen of the year. She's going to cry. The whole thing. Okay, again, remember, this is about intentionally teaching your child flexibility. Do you know in a few weeks you will be going to spend the night again? And listen, tonight we're going to sit down together and we're going to watch your favorite movie. We'll spend time together after what came up is taken care of. But I'm telling you, you can't go tonight. Okay? You're teaching them some flexibility and how to face this challenge. And they can admit to the disappointment. They can admit to being sad. All of that is really okay. But they are facing the challenge with the right attitude and flexibility. Okay? All right. Now, I want you to listen to me very, very carefully about this. An oak tree. It is immovable. So when a big storm comes, it is either going to stand or it's going to break apart. And when it breaks apart, it makes a really big mess because an oak tree has no flexibility. But a willow, when the wind blows, it bends. And then it comes back. So in hurricanes or tropical storms or tornadoes, you'll see oak trees cause horrific damage because they're not at all flexible. But you'll never see that happen with a willow because the willow can bend. The same thing is true in our nature or in our characters. We need to develop a level of flexibility. I want to encourage you. I'm not saying to you that you don't ever take a stand and refuse to budge, because there are some things in the world that are right and where you must take a stand. That's not what I'm talking about. But I am talking about facing life challenges and facing difficulty and having enough flexibility that you can bend without damage and come back upright again. Here's another area of flexibility that's a big deal, and that's interrelationally, okay? I recently had a friend of mine who passed away. He was in his 70s, and he had an older brother. And I heard him remark about this 20 to 30 times in the years that I've known him. And he said, with my brother, it's always his way or no way at all. So he said, I've had to learn that if I'm going to hang out with my brother, it's just always going to be his way. And you know, that was really disappointing for him. And it was very obvious because his brother didn't love him enough or respect him enough to have any flexibility in that relationship whatsoever. Do you know that if you are inflexible, it has an impact on the people with whom you have relationships? And it frankly makes you very difficult to be around. And you can hurt people. And so, in teaching your child flexibility, you are helping him or her for the rest of their life to do better on the pathway of life. Okay? So, I want you intentionally to teach your child flexibility. Here's the last way I'm going to give this to you. And this is about relational flexibility. All right, so say that your one child always has to have his or her way about sitting in the front seat, or whether or not they get to sit next to the window, or what they're going to have to drink at dinner. And so everybody else kind of works around them because otherwise the fit they pitch or their bad attitude is unlivable. You teach them flexibility by saying, that's not how it's going to go this time, okay? I'm going to tell you two specific ways I handled this. One was when my sons were younger, and of course that was in the day before seat belts and even, frankly, before car seats. What happened was, on the way to any place, my one son sat in the front seat, the other one sat in the back. And on the way home from that place, the other one sat in the front seat, and the one that had been in the front sat in the back. You know, it's the same distance to and from. They both got front seat time. There were no fights. When they had to share something, a candy bar, piece of cake, something somebody gave them, one got to cut it in half. The other one got to choose first. Oh, they learned to be really precise about how much one half of something is. I can say that to you. But they learned flexibility in relationships. It wasn't always going to be one person's way. The other person had to deal. My son, who still isn't great at flexibility now, even as an adult, he struggled with this the most. So I will tell you that I worked with him a little stronger about that relational flexibility story. And he couldn't lord it over his brother when certain things happened. And like when we'd have game night, more frequently, I let his brother choose the game than him. And he noticed it. He'd pull the, that's not really fair, Mom. And my line, and I'm good at this. Yeah, dude, and life isn't fair. What do you know? Some people are tall, some people are short. Some people are beautiful, some people aren't. When is life fair? Hello, you don't get to choose. Life is not fair. You're right. So, okay, I agree with you 100%. And still tonight, your brother gets to make the choice. He did learn actually a good bit of relational flexibility, which is a good thing. Okay, I can't wait to hear your questions and responses about this because I'm sure you're going to have some. I want you to intentionally work at teaching your child flexibility that will pay great dividends for the rest of his or her life. Thank you so much for joining me today on Paint a Beautiful Picture. You may find additional information on our paintabeautifulpicture.com website. Additionally, you may watch me on Rumble, and you may also listen to a podcast on Buzzsprout or Spreaker, all under the name Paint a Beautiful Picture. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. You may subscribe, and if you are interested in receiving notifications, please hit the notifications button.